MedBix webcast is a new kind of healthcare media channel to break the silo mentality and foster interdisciplinary thinking. Our mission is to fill that gap and to create a curiosity through different lenses, tapping the passion that guided the historical figures in medicine and bringing present-day groundbreaking research to the front lines. We interview physicians and leaders in the industry about present-day healthcare challenges on our live programming. Hey, welcome to the MedBix webcast. This is Raman Annamaraju. I'm the host. We have a special today. It's like a musical day. Actually, in fact, I'm after this program, I'm going to another musical program, Carnatic music of southern India. So binaural beats. Today program is focused on binaural beats. It's based on a little bit of Indian music and Indian, Sanskrit language of womb. All those things. I'm just hearing a little bit of piece of it. I don't know much about these binaural beats. So Karen Newell is a very expert in this area. We're going to talk with her in a second. But the traditions of the music, the world music, the people are stressed around the world big time this time. I never seen like this in my life. This is the first time I've been here. The journey that mental stresses around the world is just out of control. Not only just in the United States, is all over the world. We need some kind of a alternative or some process that we need to calm us down. The systems are not helping us to relax, or we don't have much of a tools available nowadays. So people like Karen Newell can provide that tool. Karen Newell is an expert in the binaural beats. By what I understand is very little bit about it. She can explain a little bit. Is a binaural beat is that when you produce a two, is a auditory illusion. Brain produces a third beat between the two beats. That's fascinating to me as a physicist. So let me bring to the table stage Karen Newell. Karen Newell.
Hello, Ramana. It's so good to be with you today.
Welcome to the MedBix webcast. Tell us a little bit I have a zero knowledge about these binaural beats. My son talks once in a while. Please explain what those binaural beats are.
Okay, so a binaural beat, you were explaining it quite well. It's when you hear one frequency in one ear and a slightly different frequency in the other ear. And that creates what you said, a third sound. It's a wah, 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 sort of a rhythmic sound. And if you've ever listened to crystal bowls or brass bowls, they're emanating binaural beats. So that's that beautiful sound you hear, just, kind of rhythmic sort of sound, wah, 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 but really beautiful with crystal bowls with all of the overtones. But if you've listened to that type of music, then it's rather mesmerizing. And the science behind that is that the difference between those two frequencies that you're hearing are actually correlated with a brainwave state. So delta is when we're asleep. That's when we're in our calmest state. That is when your brain would produce an electric signal as measured with an EEG device of 0 to 4 hertz. Interestingly, hertz is also how we refer to different frequencies of music. So that makes it rather simple. 4 to 7 hertz, that's the theta state. That state is associated with deep meditation, creativity, and alpha is just above that, 7 to 12 hertz. That's associated with focus, concentration, say you're studying or, involved in some activity where you're really in that flow, that zone. And up from there, 12 to 30 hertz, that's the beta state. That's the state we're in when we're walking, we're talking. That's the state I was in when I first tried to meditate. Very challenging because in that beta state, before you get calmed down, that's when your inner voice is just, making lists and having imaginary conversations, making plans, all of that. And when I would try to meditate, that's all that would happen. So it was very frustrating. And I know in Tibet, it takes 10,000 hours of practice before you're considered to be an expert meditator. So it's kind of a career in that sense. And most of us have other careers. And so it's nice to have shortcuts or training wheels. And that's what these binaural beats can help with, because they help take your brain from that beta state of awareness. And remember, you're listening with headphones, so you get those two signals in the ear. So you put your headphones on and start to play that music, and quickly you'll find yourself into a more relaxed state, because most of the binaural beat recordings that we create contain right around that 4 hertz, the border between asleep and awake. And this is a state we're naturally in every day as we fall asleep at night. That's the hypnagogic state. When we're waking up in the morning, it's rather similar, but it's referred to as the hypnopompic state, because we were coming out of sleep rather than going into sleep. So it's kind of like taking your brain into a calmer state of awareness. And from there, that creates a foundation for all kinds of activities.
Is there any, just let me ask you a little bit of scientific evidence. I'm a physicist, so I need to ask you, is there any scientific evidence for these binaural beats, that relaxed state, it brings you to the relaxed state?
Yes, in fact, most of the research in binaural beats is done in the psychiatric field, because it's related to different mental states of awareness. And so we were fortunate to have a psychiatrist in New York City, Dr. Anna Yusum. She's a Yale-trained psychiatrist. She was also very interested in spiritual health, more beyond mental health. But at any rate, she did a pilot study in her psychiatric practice, and she had people listen to our recordings for about 2 weeks as a daily activity. And she had them fill out this state trait anxiety inventory. That's a standard form that's used in psychiatric research for measuring levels of anxiety, both state anxiety, when you're in certain situations and you might feel anxious, or trait anxiety, which is you're just anxious all the time. That's who you are. And when she did this study, she found that anxiety was reduced by 26% after just 2 weeks of listening. Now, her control group, those were her psychiatric patients who were just getting their regular therapy, but not listening to the music in their free time. And they saw just a 7% reduction in anxiety. So that was a 19% increase in decreased anxiety just by adding these recordings to your daily kind of activities.
Are there any research universities or research institutions like NIH and National Institute of Health or National Institute of Mental Health? Are they doing any kind of work on this area? Sound as a therapy, so music as a medicine, kind of a concept that are they doing? A lot of universities are doing this research on this one,
I
Karen?
believe universities are studying music in general. Certainly, for example, in the hospice setting where people are dying, there will be people playing harps and all kinds of things that they study. And Alzheimer's, they study how music affects Alzheimer's memories. If you hear music from your childhood, suddenly you're alive. I know just from looking at all of the binaural beat studies out there that there's many of them. Many, many people have studied binaural beats. I'm not sure of a specific university who has made that a priority, however. But if you search binaural beat research, there's all kinds of research about mostly mental health, depression, anxiety, focus, concentration, for issues like ADD or ADHD. I wish more people would study it. That would be a wonderful thing to study. And the effects are rather immediate. And so it's something that everyone responds to in a unique way. And so there's a very wide range of responses, but I think it would be really nice to get some more statistics on kind of the general trends.
You said that one of the common application you were just mentioning about sleep. So what are the applications you use this kind of a binaural beats, sleep or relaxation? You're saying beta state to alpha state that you bring it, right? That's what you're saying. These binaural beats brings from a beta state to alpha state, which is a lower frequency. That is what everybody seeks nowadays because we are all stressed out. So what are
Exactly.
what? Just tell us a little bit of common applications that you think of. These, where do you use them, and what kind of people that they need these kind of things? Just to give us a little
Yeah.
bit.
Well, certainly insomnia is one of the most common ailments that many of us suffer from. I'm one of those people who have trouble with insomnia. And I spent about 2 years when I lived on this street corner where there was a traffic light and all kinds of traffic going on. every single night I would listen to binaural beats over speakers, and I was able to sleep. And so again, everyone's unique. They're going to respond in different ways, but many, many, many of our listeners have found relief from insomnia. And some people have used them, as I said, to reduce anxiety, depression, and things like that. But there are some other interesting applications that people have used. For example, there was a woman in I think it was the Netherlands, and she was blind, and she had all kinds of trouble with anxiety walking around out in the world. She had a cane. Sometimes people would be with her, but she would still occasionally run into a sign, something that was higher, that her cane wouldn't detect. And so she would spend time on a treadmill, and she would listen to our recording. She would get into that relaxed state, and then she would imagine herself walking out in the world, and that anxiety would come up. And then as she was listening, she was just calm herself down, find that state again, and say, no, it's all okay. And after a time, the anxiety about walking out in the world decreased significantly. And she wrote to me very excited about this. And we had another guy. I always encourage people to experiment because you just never know. But he had chronic neuropathy, and he would listen to one of our recordings all throughout the day. He would wear earbuds, but the volume was very, very low so that he could do his activities. But somehow this reduced the pain of his neuropathy. And so all kinds of creative ways that people have used the recordings. People use them to kind of change their limiting belief systems, for example. That theta state, alpha and theta, are really useful for that. So, for example, an example I like to use is that time when I first tried to meditate and I couldn't do it. And I would tell myself, oh, I'm just one of those people who can't meditate. So I was telling myself, you can't do this. And by changing that inner talk to, no, you can do this, I can meditate, I sort of changed my belief system while I was listening to the recordings. And at first I didn't think of it as meditation, but once you're able to hold that quiet focus inside, you're achieving meditation. And of course, that's something that universities all over have studied, especially, forget the exact university in Wisconsin, who was originally motivated by the Dalai Lama himself, who wanted to know what is the science behind all of these effects that we're feeling, and how wonderful that he did that, because it used to be so amorphous. We didn't understand, and having data really helps, especially the Western mind, to grasp these kinds of concepts.
He gave a long list of kind of medical conditions. Insomnia is one of them. Is the whole world is suffering from, not just you and me. We all have the problems everywhere. So, what this music? If you hear this kind of, is a precursor to. If I want to do meditations, for example, is a great precursor to the meditation, right? I mean, you start with the music, and then you can get into the calm state, and then you can follow other things. Otherwise, our monkey brains don't follow. Is just that don't follow any kind of thoughts, go everywhere. So this kind of things will bring you down to the calm state. Is that right? If I understand
That's
you?
correct. And that's why I refer to them as training wheels. Like on a bicycle, you add 2 small wheels while you're trying to learn so that you don't fall off, right? And they're very helpful at helping you learn to balance. And so these types of recordings with binaural beats, especially from Sacred Acoustics, because those are the ones I'm most familiar with, they can help people get into those states more easily. And as we all learn the benefits of meditation, it really behooves all of us to learn how to do that. In some cultures, it's just natural. You grow up knowing how to do it. And in the West, we do not. We think it's exotic and strange and unusual. Some of us, not myself, but some of us think it's even dangerous. But you really need to try it for yourself to find out how you respond and what your kind of inclination for this could be. But once you establish this practice and you're able to get into these calmer states, then you can start to really know yourself as more than just your physical body, because there's a non-physical part of you that can only be known by going within, by learning what is behind those racing thoughts that are constantly going on. Well, there's something behind that, and it's called many things. One way we refer to it as the inner observer. It's sort of a neutral part of yourself that's there all the time. It's the part of you that notices when you're meditating that your mind has wandered. Some part of you suddenly realizes you're thinking about something else and you're no longer focused. That's your inner observer. And your inner observer is neutral. And that's why it can be so useful, because once you have this awareness of the inner observer, it can start to serve you in ways that help you in your daily life. Say you're having a contentious conversation with someone and you're kind of just reacting and losing control of your emotions or whatnot. If your inner observer is active, it can kick in and suggest to you, perhaps you might consider changing your tack here. And it's happened for me, and it saved me from embarrassment and, allowing myself to say things that I would have regretted later. And it only comes from this kind of regular practice. And when you do this, you just start to notice it more in your daily life. So I know when I first learned about meditation, I thought it was something you did by yourself in a cave, you withdrew from society. But actually, what I've learned is the meditation skills that I have learned have helped me in my daily life. It's not at all about withdrawing from society, but a better ability to manage your thoughts and your emotions as you go through all of your interactive relationships.
Karen, I will try to play, see that if we can hear that, so I'm trying to play this music and see.
Well, for your listeners who do want to hear what we're trying to play here, it's available for free on sacredacoustics.com. Just look for the free download, enter your email address, and we'll send you a link to this file. Because honestly, you can't understand it until you try it for yourself. And again, headphones are very useful because if you're using your phone, you're just hearing one stereo signal mixed into one channel. And laptops and computers, unless you're really well technically equipped, aren't going to, give you the type of sound. So please do go try that free recording and see for yourself.
Oh, that's, he gave us a little bit of a medical conditions, a little bit. Do you know anything about cognitive function? It improves the cognitive function for people who listen to this one. Particularly, you just mentioned Alzheimer patients. So tell us a little bit about that, if you have any kind of information about that.
About the effects on cognitive
about the cognitive function, improving the cognitive functions of these people. Alzheimer patients, you mentioned Alzheimer patients,
Yeah, well, the thing that they help the most with is focus, concentration, keeping your attention on one singular item. And that is what so many of us have trouble with, with the ADHD, just keeping our attention focused. And that's the most obvious way that they can help. But they can also, again, help, the cognitive behavioral therapy is where you kind of relearn different behaviors. And if you think about it, theta frequencies, that's 4 to 7 hertz, theta frequencies are what children are in naturally. They're walking around in theta, and that is when they're just little sponges soaking up knowledge, just constant knowledge, language, and all kinds of things. And so if you put your brain into a theta state, you can reprogram yourself to whatever is most beneficial for you. And I gave the example of, I can't meditate. No, I can meditate. It can be just whatever your particular goal is, and just change how you think about things. The power of belief can be seen in medicine through the placebo effect. And it always has fascinated me that medicine hasn't learned more about that placebo effect. Is there a way to enhance that, whatever it is, about a third, I think, about 30% of medicines will have their effect just based on a person believing that it will make them better. That is what interests me. What if we could increase that to, 80%, where just belief will help you heal a certain ailment? But these recordings, the reason I bring that up is because they can help you in your local, belief system to just really tackle those limiting beliefs.
You just mentioned about children. These jittery feelings. People are playing video games and they're got jittery and all these things. Do they tell us what kind of people they can particularly? Does it help the children? Are there any side effect? Let us talk about that. What kind of people it helps more effective? You see,
Well,
people.
it's interesting because most people who, at least until now, things are starting to shift, but most people who are drawn to this sort of thing are in the older category, sort of 50 plus or maybe 40 plus. Engineer minded people are very interested in binaural beats because there's a
Hmm.
system to it, there's mathematics to it. Every one of our recordings has frequencies that are harmonic to every other frequency in that recording, and that's directly to do to mathematics. Music is just a formula of mathematics, so engineers are attracted to it. But lately, more and more younger people are becoming
Hmm.
interested in this, and this excites me to no end, because the way we really bring change to our world is through the younger generations bringing the ideas forward into our new leadership, our new companies that are going to be created, and so on. And so even children, I know this firsthand because I have two grandchildren, one who is 6, very interested in video games, as you say, but he also is interested in meditation because children's programming seems to be kind of bringing that up. And so he'll sometimes say to his mother, who's my daughter, he'll say, "Oh, Mom, I need a timeout." And he'll go to his room and sit there with his 2 hands on his knees, cross-legged, and just kind of sit still with himself. And my daughter is just now starting to, or not just now, she's been for a while using these recordings to help her children sleep. And now she has a 2-month-old baby. And so we have a recording specifically made for babies to help babies sleep called Sacred Lullaby. And it really is effective. I've seen it for myself. But we had a child many years ago when we first started, maybe about 8 years ago, and she had a lot of behavioral issues. She was always acting out, temper tantrums, and she was a little older, around 8 or 9, where kids usually grow out of that kind of thing and learn that self-management. But this was before we had, Sacred Lullaby. She would listen to these other recordings that we had thought we had made for adults, that it helped her. And her mother actually recorded a little video of this girl thanking me for helping her learn how to manage her emotions better just by listening to these recordings. And so it
my,
really is quite amazing what the results can be.
my son is actually a neuroscience graduate from Vanderbilt. He's he says that all the times that he was listening. I think he heard your music too. He was fascinated by that, and he actually incorporate. He's not expert in it, but he incorporates. I actually wanted to join today, but he had some other obligation, unfortunately. But he wants to incorporate your kind of music in his, for the young people to the like rap or R&B, that kind of thing. The binaural beats incorporate in this kind of things. He was very much interested in this new generation, as you are talking about. They're very much interested in this kind of things.
Yeah, binaural beats can be added to all kinds of music.
Are there any specific binaural beats you use for different people, or everything is common for you have a common things, or different beats you use different people? Just tell us a little bit specific to the person that you design.
Yeah, well, there's all kinds of different people that we designed for. One, we designed, our audio engineer created a very special, specific recording for his wife while she was in childbirth, natural childbirth. They had a birthing tub that they put in their 3rd floor Manhattan apartment and played this music, and it was so beautiful. It kept everyone in the room calm during childbirth, especially the mother-in-law, the mother of the mother. And so we made that available to our listeners. It's called Cosmic Womb. And I actually gave it to an OB obstetrician. And he started giving it to his patients. But he loved it so much, he would listen to it in his office while he was doing all of his notes. So that we created especially for that. We have another recording we made. It's called Low Band Pi Trance. That was created for a very specific movement exercise. So if people do Qigong or Jiu-Jitsu or I'm not sure exactly of all the kind of meditative martial arts there are and different types of energy movement, but this recording can be used for any of this type of movement. So lots and lots of flexibility. Another thing that sometimes people find happens, which might alarm some people, but others are actually seeking this sort of experience, and that is an out-of-body experience where suddenly you find your awareness is no longer in your body, but is somewhere else and is maybe witnessing your body lying on the bed. In fact, that is exactly how binaural beats were originally created by Bob Monroe back in the 50s, 60s. He was a radio entrepreneur, and he was experimenting with using sound to help with learning while you're asleep. And he started having out-of-body experiences. And so he wanted to know, can I create this kind of music that helps others induce this sort of experience? And so occasionally we do have someone tell us that that's what happens. And again, some people are looking to have that type of experience. And if you're looking for it, it's less likely to happen because you have this expectation. But it's one of those activities that some people find really entertaining, or also very important in really finding out for themselves that they are more than just their physical body. And having that kind of activity certainly does give you that firsthand direct knowledge of how you can be separate from your body. And this is that part of you that I guess you could call it a soul, that non-physical part of you that exists beyond the death of the physical body. And so getting to know that part of your eternal self is really important, and was part of my motivation for wanting to learn how to do all of this.
You know, Karen, I used to live in Georgia. You live in, Charlottesville, Virginia. So we're kind of a Bible belt. We live in a Bible kind of belt. Now I live in Silicon Valley. But are there any resistance from these religious kind of fringe people in that sense for these kind of
There
things?
is some resistance from some religious people. It's interesting. I found a website a while back that claimed how meditation was dangerous for you. And it was a Christian who had tried meditation and apparently had some not so pleasant experiences, and decided that meditation was to blame for all of it and that no one should ever do it. And so there is some fear around kind of, I guess they feel that God is not necessarily knowable by them personally, that God is too big of a force or something. I don't really honestly know where their fear comes from, but they do have that fear. And occasionally that fear is projected onto us as somehow doing something not helpful. But, there's also a huge number of religious folks who have discovered that meditation is not dangerous, and they're using it to enhance their prayer. They're using it to enhance their personal connection to that inner voice that they call God. And, it's very flexible. We don't have a belief system that we put on other people except to have an open mind, that you are more than just the physical part of you. That's all we ask. And from there, it really is, you were talking about other meditative techniques earlier, and I wanted to suggest that people can actually combine those meditative techniques while listening to our recordings. So different breathing techniques. I know I learned, there's pranayama breathing. There's all kinds of breathing through the heart that you can do from a particular form of Sufi heart rhythm meditation. And when I learned these techniques, and then I would do those same techniques while listening to the recordings. You had said maybe listen first, then do your meditation. That is how some people do it. Or the music can accompany throughout your entire meditative session, depending on, how it all works for you. But any type of mantras, mudras, breathing patterns, bring those into your listening sessions and see what the results are. Many longtime meditators will find that they go even deeper or have different kinds of experiences than they've had before. And of course, beginners, so many of us are beginners, that you just get a chance to even know what it feels like to meditate and then take it from there. But we're all unique. We're all going to start somewhere different. And so we like to meet people where they are. Where are you right now? What can these recordings do for you? Not, things that are years down the future, but how can they help you right now? And I wanted to mention before we finish that the recordings used in that pilot study that showed the 26% reduction in anxiety, that is a set of recordings that we offer on our website, sacredacoustics.com. It's called the Whole Mind Bundle. 9 recordings, delta, theta, and alpha frequencies, lots of flexibility. It includes a PDF guide or a printed guide if you buy CD format that tells you what to do, gives you all of the instructions on when to listen, how to listen, what to expect. And I hope people will take advantage of that, because the study was published in the Journal of Nervous and Mental Disease in February 2020. If you recall, that was 1 month before the pandemic really took hold of our world, and everyone was sent into anxiety in one way or another. And so that's when I made those recordings available at no cost, and they still remain at no cost. There's also a charge for those who, a small fee for those who can afford it. But if you can't, there's no barrier. Please go help yourself to those recordings, because as you reduce your anxiety, you're helping all of us, and you have my gratitude.
Karen, are there any people you don't use this kind of, you don't suggest to this application, or a specific kind of people?
Well, the classic kind of contraindication that I learned about, but I've never saw any evidence for, was people who had seizures might find these recordings to not be so helpful. Occasionally, I will get someone who is so sensitive to sound, it's just too much for them. Or very occasionally, I'll have someone say that they just get headaches and they can't get past the headaches. And sometimes that turns out to be related to caffeine withdrawal or some other activity that people don't realize. But very occasionally, I'll say even rarely, there will be someone, they just can't handle it. But some people will listen and they'll feel a little anxious. They won't feel calm. They'll actually feel a little agitated, and they'll think, oh my gosh, the tones are making me agitated. What really they're doing, as I discovered over time, is that they seem to be stimulating or activating energy that's already inside of you that is itching to be released. And so if you do feel kind of some discomfort or maybe some emotions, I used to cry and I would think, why, this is getting in my way. And then I realized, oh no, this is not getting in my way. This is very valuable because I can now release this emotion. And so all these kind of things can happen that might seem a little bit uncomfortable, but really in the end, they're helping you to clear any kind of residue in your system that isn't helpful, suppressed emotions from past events that were never properly processed, beliefs that aren't serving you, and so on. So,
is there any headache or something like that side effect that is some people experience in this one?
Very occasionally that will take place. But interestingly, I've also had people who have like migraine headaches, and the recordings make their headaches go away. Right. Yeah. And so it's really challenging to know for certain, because all of our brainwaves are different, and this is affecting our brainwave state. And I learned not so long ago that our brainwave state is as unique as fingerprints. So they can actually, take an EEG and identify someone. That's how unique we are, as a starting point. And so it's no surprise that we would all react a little differently.
Karen, you are very close to good friend. He's Dr. Evan Alexander, a neurosurgeon. He was mentioning last time when he appeared on my podcast. He had a cold. He said that he was in the morning. He was listening to your Sacred Acoustics, and he came back and he was just normal, and he was full of enthusiasm and energy. It did affect. I can see that it has positively affected him in that sense to come
Actually,
on
I
the show.
remember that. You just caused me to remember that because he was really sick for a while, and I've known Eben for 12 years or so, and it was unusual. Remember, everyone was getting colds and stuff last fall as we were coming
That's
out of
yeah.
our cocoons, and I did
Yeah.
too. And yeah, he felt a lot better. He still was doing podcasts when he through all of this, and yes, that's how some people use them. I know once I had a sore throat, and I decided to listen to binaural beats, and I imagined blue, the color blue, all around my throat. And when I came out of the meditation, my sore throat was gone. So I don't want to sound like, oh, just listen to binaural beats and all your ailments will be cured. That's not the case. There's many, many different responses, but certainly healing is one of those responses, and it can happen immediate for something small or even large, but it can also take some time. So lots and lots of ways to approach this.
I'm going to show you after this podcast a little bit about. I'm in Silicon Valley. The technology they want to use a virtual reality. Would you have you ever done the application with the virtual reality along with the binaural beats?
Well, I have an Oculus 2, I think. So I am very sold that the kind of visual experience that the Oculus virtual reality device offers could definitely be enhanced with binaural beats. And Eben and I occasionally will run into people. One was in England, in London, maybe in 2014. Someone had developed a device that it was virtual reality, but it was rather cumbersome. You had to wear it on your body so that you could feel vibrations and stuff. They wanted you to actually feel things, not just see things. And I thought when we demoed this, I thought it could really be enhanced with some binaural beats. And so I think those applications are possible. I have not explored it. Occasionally, someone will reach out to us who has those abilities, and we haven't quite found the right synergy yet, but I expect that there's a lot of potential for virtual reality. I know they use it for PTSD, so I can only imagine that it can be useful in many other sort of medical settings.
Because it is both visual and auditory, both that
Right.
kind of illusions it creates, that is a powerful. I want to ask you that, yeah, so that is one of the questions that uh, what inspired you to get into this kind of a very strange field that is you're into?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because I spent 25 years in the publishing industry. We published magazines and newspapers. So I went from the transition through desktop publishing all the way to the internet and had to learn all of that technology. So, how in the world? So, it was my personal explorations that got me interested in binaural beats. And it was at a workshop that I attended where I met Kevin Cossey. He's my co-founder of Sacred Acoustics. He's a mechanical and electrical engineer in Manhattan. He's a born and bred guy from New York City. So you know that personality, very driven and
Mm.
very serious. And he wanted to make his own binaural beats. And I thought he was silly because I thought that would be a musician's job. And he was an engineer. And he said, no, no, no. You take things apart, you put them back together. And so he got wind of the vast library of binaural beats that I had, and he wanted to check them out. And so I was in Baltimore, Maryland. He was in New York City, but we began a collaboration, really, of looking at other people's binaural beats, analyzing how they're created, and then creating our own. And I was kind of the muse. So Kevin would create recordings. I would say, oh, add some more delta. I was a big fan of delta because that helped me get into those deeper states. Other people, I've learned, too much delta, they just fall asleep. But for me, I was able to, at that point, maintain my awareness. And so more delta was helpful. But anyway, through our personal explorations, it was about a year into this that we met, who you mentioned earlier, Dr. Eben Alexander. And he had not written his book yet. In fact, he didn't even have an agent at this point, but he met his agent the week after we met. And interestingly, he had been using these binaural beats to return to the expanded state that he was in during his near-death experience while in a coma state. And so when he went up to New York City a few weeks later to talk to publishers, Kevin, who lived in New York, went to his hotel room, hooked him up to our frontal lobe EEG device, and had him listen to our recordings, and he was blown away. And so it was really Eben, Dr. Alexander, who said, you need to make these available for others. And Karen, by the way, you're going to come with me around the world and help teach people how to use them. And I said, no, I am not. You are crazy. You're a nut. I'm a technology girl behind the scenes. I don't do that sort of thing. And he said, we'll see. And so here in Charlottesville, someone asked him to do a workshop. That was in early 2013, a few months after Proof of Heaven came out. And he said, come on, Karen, put my name on the flyer. You're going to come teach this workshop with me. And off we went. And so resistance is futile, especially when you're connected to Dr. Eben Alexander with a mission to really change the paradigm of our world to one that allows for consciousness as being something fundamental and not merely an illusion created by the physical body. So that's how I got into this, thanks to Dr. Alexander.
Yeah, I'm a great fan of Dr. Alexander. Yeah, I want to ask you, just you were mentioning a little bit about the NDE, near-death experience. Did they use people like therapists using in a hypnosis area? Is it the binaural beats help you to recall some of the incidents, some of the things that to?
Absolutely, yeah. Some people get into these states. You can. It all depends on how you're guided and what your intentions are. So once you get into these deep states, and this is with some practice, not just right away, but I've been in situations where I've gotten in contact with my council, the team of guides that apparently are helping me with my role here on Earth. I've gotten in touch with loved ones who have died, my grandmother, my stepfather. And so these kinds of things become more possible. First of all, you just have to open your mind to the fact that it is possible, that the potential is there, that this is not supernatural, but completely natural for all of us to do this. These are some of the things that can be done.
I am, music as a medicine is going to be the new kind of, even the NIH and the National Institute of Mental Health also started a kind called sound health. They started it. So it is going to be the popular, your kind of things are going to be really, that is that I'm a physicist. When the two black holes, when we heard the first gravitational waves, the first thing that we heard was just a tone. That first they played us a tone of how the black holes merging together in the beginning of the universe. It's those kind of a very powerful event in the history of universe, that when they are merging they make a sound, a very strange sound, and then very short period, that's very, it reminds me a lot of binaural beats. I felt that, as a physicist, it maybe that is what I'm recalling. I think music as a medicine is a underrated, underutilized. I think it is going to be the future of the one of the therapies. Definitely has to incorporate as a practice. I have no doubts about that. And my son is teaching me, and you are now gave me a lot more information than that. So I think that. Thank you so much. It is an absolutely wonderful. I think what you're doing, and the people need this kind of a therapies all over the world. I'm not just talking about some people, particularly the children, with all the jittery feelings, playing video games. There's tensions on the social media, and then the adults, that playing, I'm in technology place. They are focused on some things, writing, coding all day, and doing that kind of things. They're in a separate zone, and then older people that they feel lonely and all. I think you tell us a little bit about all this spectrum, how you wanted to see the future of the binaural beats.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was struck by that. You just said people feel lonely. And during the pandemic, we were all feeling lonely. I wasn't, because I'm an introvert, but lots of folks were really missing that interaction with everybody. And of course, I was missing seeing my family and friends and so on. But we were all disconnected. And one of the things that Evan and I did during that pandemic is that we began a series of interviews with really our colleagues who we would normally have seen, if we were attending conferences and such. And so every single time we had an interview, we would end the recording with a meditation and end the interview with a meditation. And I didn't play the music. All I did was guide people to go into their hearts, feel their hearts, and then feel that heart expand to encompass the entire earth. And when you do that, you realize that all of our hearts are intermingling at once. I was also very inspired by the work of HeartMath, who've studied the electromagnetic field of the heart. And really, our electromagnetic fields emanating from our hearts, they're constantly expanding and contracting. They're mixing with other heart fields. And so this is how we try to maintain our connection, is we would say, at 11 a.m. every day, just go into your heart, feel that love, send that love out to the universe. If you're not feeling especially strong that day, feel the love coming into your heart. Receive the love that everyone else is sending. And this was, lots of folks found different strategies for staying connected throughout the pandemic. And this is one way we helped others to feel that connection. And really, I learned through my practice of meditation. At one point, I was meditating and felt this deep, 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 deep loneliness and despair. And once I allowed myself to feel that, it was replaced with a feeling of connection, this team that I spoke of. It's there any time I need to tap in, and all of us have that same capacity. So really, another thing that comes to mind is that no one dies alone. People were so concerned during COVID about people being isolated in their hospital rooms and dying. But what we learned from hospice work, the work of Dr. Christopher Kerr, he's a hospice doctor in Buffalo who's done landmark prospective studies on what happens to hospice patients throughout the dying process. And one of the most common things is loved ones who have previously died show up. And they're there. So it's really impossible to die alone, because anyone that you've known from the past, even from the distant, distant past, if you have a loving bond and connection, they're there for you. And so this idea that anyone is ever lonely, we all need to feel a sense of community, but this idea of spiritual health is exactly that, of feeling that you're connected to something greater than yourself, of feeling that you have meaning to your daily life, and that there's an overriding purpose to your existence. That's what we think spirituality is. It's not about a religion, but it's about knowing yourself as something more, something that is connected to others, and knowing and feeling that, even if you're physically disconnected, feeling that non-physical connection can help in so many ways. And we do have people who are isolated who find our tones incredibly helpful, because some of them have developed ways to journey within their mind. And so they may be trapped in their body, they're in their home, but with their mind, they can explore the universe. And this is how they, still maintain that connection, even though they're, rather physically limited.
That's a very powerful statement you gave. Never die alone. That's we kind of, when I'm surrounded by people, still you feel lonely. That is just a very common, biggest symptom in the world right now. People are feeling lonely everywhere, and then they feel that they die alone. And that's another one, particularly older people. It is just, you gave a very good statement on that one, on how we can really solve that connecting through music, and really we can rehab ourselves through this kind of a sacred acoustics.
At innersanctumcenter.com. And that's where Eben and I are always together talking about these concepts. My bundle, Reduce Anxiety, you can use the contact form to reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm happy to assist.
Thank you so much. It's really educational for all of us. I learned a lot from you today about the binaural beats, and I'm going to listen. And definitely, it's going to be part of my routine because it has to be routine for everyone. Because this is the only way we can solve this problem of loneliness, solve this problem of stress, and the jitteriness and all these things. We needed a new tool. You're providing that. Thank you, Karen. I really appreciate that you're coming
Well,
on my
thank you,
show.
Ramana, for all of the information that you share with your audience. Very much appreciated.
Thank you so much. Good night, all of you.